The way Feel Something came about was kind of an interesting one. I sort of was walking home from something because I decided not to Uber. And so it was like an hour and 45-minute walk, but I was like, I'm walking. It was pouring rain. I literally have no idea how it happened, but I just had the idea and I started recording and the entire chorus just literally came out. The inspiration, some of it's not true. It's not all a true story. Like a lot of it's just like an imaginary situation of like having fun and doing whatever you can to feel something. So there are some funny like true stories behind some of the lyrics, but it's a big combo of like true stories and all imagination. Everything in between. Barely made it out alive, crashed my car on the sidewalk is a true story. There was a bunch of fog and I couldn't really see where I was going, and I was going down a hill turning and I couldn't tell where I was driving, and ended up sort of getting stuck on a cliff basically because of the way the sidewalk worked. My car was like kind of hanging off the cliff and kind of not. So the person I was with, we got out of the car, and actually like 7 really kind people got out of their car and lifted my car, lifted it in the air so that we could get it off of the way where that it was. Long story short, I'm okay. Everyone is okay who was involved. But that one's technically a little bit true. What up, MTV News? I'm Joshua Bassett, and today I'm going to be telling you my top 5 musical influences. So for my first musical influence, I'm going to have to go with Paul McCartney. And I was debating between whether or not to do the Beatles or Paul McCartney because obviously Paul McCartney was in the Beatles. He's iconic through that, and I love all the rest of the Beatles as well. But I personally think that Paul McCartney has really made an imprint on my life since I was born, truly. Like, my dad played all of McCartney's stuff from all the Beatles stuff, and he wrote Yesterday by himself, which is my favorite Beatles song. And just a lot of the songs that Paul wrote, I tend to lean towards more, although again, no shade to John, who's got some great songs as well, don't get me wrong. But I think Paul's career entirely I can sort of lean towards. I mean, Wings is an iconic band that my dad played for me all the time growing up. I love all of his solo stuff. So Paul McCartney for sure. It's no secret that he's one of the best songwriters of all time. And he's just really easygoing, and I just really love that he's always sort of giving out a positive message. And he's an essential, fundamental part of my childhood, and he definitely had to be one of those. For my second musical influence, I went with Ed Sheeran because Ed Sheeran is such a force to be reckoned with. And I think the cool thing about Ed is like he's no BS, like he really does it all. You can see that when you look at videos of him street performing, when he was young. And he would go out there and he'd street perform, and he'd write 3 songs a day. He'd go home and write songs, and then he'd try a new song every day and see if people liked it. If they didn't like it, it was out and he did a new song. The fact that he plays 70,000 seat stadiums, it's literally him and a loop pedal and a guitar, and people walk away from it saying it's the best show they've ever seen. Says something, and I think that he is just such an inspiration in so many ways, in the songs that he writes, in the performer that he is, and the work that he does. Like, he's just such a hardworking guy, but at the same time, he also will put out an album and then travel for a year and a half and won't write it all. And I think that that's another element of my life that I think is important. Is like, as much as I love music, and it's like such an important part of my life, the way he sort of navigates this whole world and navigates everything that comes with the music is really healthy. I think that that's a good model to look after. It's just everything he does. Anyway, I look up to him very much. My next musical influence is Queen. Queen is iconic. There's no debate about that. Like, you're looking at the numbers, they're iconic, but I specifically watch the Live Aid performance. I actually prefer those versions of those songs over the studio versions. I don't know why, but there's a certain energy behind those songs. You can't beat it. You really can't. And just Freddie Mercury is such an example of somebody who owned who they were entirely, and they did not apologize for who they were in any single way. Like, he really just owned who he was, and he wasn't arrogant. Think he was better than anybody else. But he'd been through so much stuff, and he just said, you know what? I am who I am, and I don't care if you like it, and if you don't like it, I'm going to be fearless with me. And I think that is incredibly inspiring for so many people. And they also make great music. Like, aside from Freddie Mercury being such an icon in so many ways, like, the music that they made is so incredible and so good. So for my next artist, I went with Bruno Mars because I think he is like the smoothest man alive. He really is. That's not why I'm like a fan of him, but that's just a side note. He is the smoothest man that's ever walked this earth. But his music is so good. It does so many different things because in one way it's like really sweet and honest and pure, and another way like he's kind of not afraid to like be a little bit of a badass and like, do some cool things with his stuff. So he kind of plays the whole spectrum, and I think that everything he does, I eat it up. Like I love all 3 of his albums. I've been a fan since I was like 10. Grenade was like, man, Grenade broke my heart. I think I sang When I Was Your Man at a talent show once, and I won, I'm pretty sure. Or I got like 2nd place. I placed in the talent show, that's all that I know. But that song, When I Was Your Man, come on. No one's ever written it. Like, that's one of the best breakup songs this world has ever seen. And also he dances, and he's just super cool. Like, he's just the coolest kid on the block, and everybody wants to be Bruno Mars. So Anderson .Paak is another person that I'm absolutely a fan of, and obsessed with all of his discography. And so once Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak came together, I was like, this is too good to be true. No way they're really doing this. But I watched the Leave the Door Open music video, and I just jogged off the whole time. I was like, this is perfect. And then I found out that they're releasing an album, which is some of the best things I've heard in the last 10 years. So anyway, very much excited for the album coming out between Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak. For my last musical influence, I'm going with Adele, because I think Adele is just such a special voice in this world, and I think that she is somebody who's very intentional with what she does. Everything that she does has meaning behind it, and she's so good at really like getting to the core of how she feels and like eliciting that emotion in her music, and you can feel it, and it's like timeless and beautiful, and who doesn't love Adele? But I just think that she does such a good job of examining the like human emotions, and also her voice is like so incredible. But I think those 2 things go hand in hand. I think that her voice and her writing is a reflection of the beautiful soul that she is, and I think that we only get a glimpse of that. I've never personally met Adele, but I'm sure that we would have many deep spiritual conversations. Another thing that's cool about her is she really is able to do the spectrum similar to Bruno. She can do like a really soft ballad, and she can also make a killer, heavy, 4-on-the-floor pop song like Rolling in the Deep, you know? And I think that sort of range, and the fact that she does both so well is like so admirable. All of her discography is definitely going to influence my music for the rest of the time. So some honorable mentions that I couldn't make the list, but I just had to include them, are Miley Cyrus, because Miley Cyrus. Of course, Lizzo. Lizzo's album, her last album, I've heard more times than is probably healthy, but that is just a powerhouse of an album. Lizzie McAlpine, I think, is one of the greatest songwriters of our time. Billy Joel is the last one I wanted to mention. Billy Joel and Dua Lipa. Billy Joel and Dua Lipa. Those are my 5 extra influences. I can go into reasons maybe in a part 2, but for now they'll just live as my honorable mentions because they have shaped what today is.